Last time, Rolling Stones, last turn. Is this the last turn? I predicted there would be an odd turn. Someone would throw all these events into a cocked hat. We may have had that yesterday. Somebody who's watching this very closely and speaking out very intelligently and eloquently on it is Jeff Duncan, representative for South Carolina's 3rd District, member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Good morning, Mr. Duncan.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for having me this morning.
Thank you very much for coming on. What do you make of this latest set of turns, this odd business that occurred yesterday?
Yeah, it was odd based on the past rhetoric out of the Obama administration that seemed that military strike was the only option. And, you know, a lot of us were urging caution. And it was only yesterday was the 20th day since the chemical attack of August 21st. And so, you know, I said, what's the sense of urgency here? Why not try to garner support and make your case in the court of international public opinion with the other countries that signed the Chemical Weapons Convention and see if there's other alternatives of maybe a blockade or maybe economic sanctions and keep arms from going into Syria and really put a lot of pressure before we put another man and woman the caliber of Tyrone Woods, a Navy SEAL who died in Benghazi, before we put another Tyrone Woods into harm's way and a civil war in Syria that's been raging for 30 months.
Yeah, now we have the Russians. We have this odd business where Secretary Kerry speaks. He says, well, the only thing that could prevent the attack would be if they were to turn over all their weapons. The State Department immediately undercuts that off the record, saying that he really goofed up, on the record saying it was merely rhetorical. The Russians seemingly take it seriously. They pick it up, Mr. Lavrov. He then gets in touch with the guy sitting in next to him, the Syrian foreign minister, and lo and behold, we have a proposal to the United States. Okay, maybe we'll turn over all these sarin gas materials to an international tribunal, and everything is on hold. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, you know, Obama said yesterday on Fox News, and I quote, the American people are right not to want to have us entangled in a sectarian civil war inside of Syria. So, you know, that's probably the most coherent, straightforward statement the guy's made in this whole thing, is listening to the American people and realizing they don't want us to go to war and get involved in someone else's civil war. They don't see an imminent threat to the United States. Our national security isn't threatened. You could make an argument, and I think the administration is trying to do that a lot of our allies in the region, Israel being prominent in that, feel threatened with Assad and his chemical weapons. But he's had these chemical weapons for decades. Someone within the Syrian civil war used chemical weapons, and I haven't seen the irrefutable evidence that it was ordered by Assad. And so, you know, I have been one and then the other day I asked John Kerry at the hearing, is the power of the executive branch so intoxicating that you would abandon past caution in order to pull the trigger so quickly in Syria?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You've also been incessant, and I'm glad you have been, on the whole Benghazi situation. And that really, Libya is really the better parallel here, isn't it, than Iraq? I mean, going in sort of leading from behind, not having a clear sense of the mission, going in where there are a lot of different factions vying for power. This is a much better analogy and rife, as the comparison shows, with danger and trouble.
That's right. I mean, we went into Libya in support of our NATO allies, and you could make a lot of arguments that was the right thing. I voted against the authorization of use of military force in Libya because I didn't see that as a clear threat to the United States either. But you could make the argument we went in support of NATO and we're using air power only. Well, I believe they revealed yesterday there were boots on the ground in Libya. I don't think you can have air power without boots on the ground doing targeting, but and so there is some limited use of active military on the ground, not just air power or naval strikes. I just don't see how that can happen. But Libya turned over the government to an Islamist regime, the Muslim Brotherhood controlled in Libya. We also provide a lot of arms and other things to the Libyan rebels, and I believe that's what Chris Stevens and others were trying to do in Benghazi, is round up those arms so that they could then be sent to Syria. And that's why I thought that Benghazi was germane to the Syria debate in Foreign Affairs last week.
Yeah. On this Russian thing, just a couple of distinctions. I don't want to be just lawyer-like here, but it is relevant, it seems to me. You talked about the location or placement of these weapons. There have been a number of credible reports that the weapons, sarin gas and other things, have been used by the opposition. You've heard about this as well. So does the Russian deal then require, if that's the case, that the rebels turn over all their sarin gas? And how do we marshal that?
Well, I mean, there are no good guys in this civil war, and that's been a question a lot of us have had. Who do you support? Do you support the Russians and the Iranians and Hezbollah and the Syrian Assad government, or do you support the rebels who are backed by Al-Qaeda and Hamas and a number of other oddity anti-U.S. factions there? I think there's hundreds of different groups that have some sort of little cell fighting in this civil war. So who has gas? Who doesn't have gas? Who are the good guys? Who are going to comply with international law? And who thumb their nose at the United States and Russia and say, we're going to keep our gas and we're going to try to smuggle it out of the country and use it in an act of terror. So, it's a very tough situation when you say we're going to round up all the gas there. Do we rely on the Russians to do that? Do we have to verify that?
Yeah. How do you verify that? I mean, look how difficult it is in peacetime. How do you do that in wartime, right?
Yeah. And we were just trying to find normal weapons in Libya and round those up. And here we are going to try to find gas canisters that, the terrorists want. They can get an AK-47 anywhere. If they get their hands on some gas, they're going to try to covet that and hold that and keep any inspector from knowing they've got it.
We're talking to Jeff Duncan from South Carolina's 3rd District. Congressman, the president, though, I think does see a way out here. And I think he's seizing it because, in my own view, he's sorry he ever said the red line. I don't think he really does want to strike. So he's seizing this as an opportunity and claiming that he's been pushing Putin to do this all along. I don't really believe that. But by doing so, he is giving the Russians an awful lot of power. I mean, they're holding the strings here. They're the puppeteer.
Well, they do, and you're exactly right. He's been looking for an exit ever since the British voted against the authorization of military force, and so he's been looking for the door. That's when he said, what, I think I do need to go to Congress and have them involved to give me the go-ahead with a resolution. And so that's when he started looking for an out, and I really thought all along, and still do, that he was looking for the United States House of Representatives to vote against the resolution and give him a way out. And then give him a political angle that he could say, if something happened down the road, look, the House is the one that didn't give us the authorization, and so they're the ones to blame. They're always looking for a political spin, but he was looking for the door, and it does give Bill the Russians a lot of power here. They've got a lot of power in that region. They've got military bases and naval bases in Syria. They've been in Syria a long time. I don't believe there's any partner, if they're a willing ally in this, to round up the gas and truly verify it. I don't believe there's a better person that could do that, because Assad's going to listen to the Russians. The rest of the world may be skeptical, but the Assad regime is going to listen to the Russians, and they are already on the ground. They're there, and many would say they know where all these chemical weapon stores are because they have been so active in Syria for a long time.
But a couple of complications. One is, as one of our listeners pointed out, we have every reason to believe that Syria has the capacity to produce this stuff, not just to store it. So what is it they have to give up? Just the what's on the shelf, or their ability to produce it. Second, as I mentioned, the opposition may have it too. And who polices this? The Russians? I mean, talk about the fox in the hen house here. Or do we have to send in American soldiers to police it? And there are your boots on the ground. I mean, it is a daggone mess. This thing, I'm not sure it solves the problem.
Well, I'm not sure either, but I do know and believe in my heart that military involvement by the U.S. Can escalate the situation in Syria into a regional issue, because Assad had said he's going to strike back. Any sort of caged animal lashes out. Does he strike Israel? Did they get involved? What does that mean in the Arab world there? Does he send a surface missile toward one of the U.S. ships out in the Med? And I think those missiles have 250-kilometer range, so they can hit one of our ships out in the Mediterranean. Then we have been striked. Then do we escalate it? What do the Iranians do? What does Hezbollah do with their sleeper cells all over the world, specifically in this hemisphere? I think you and I have talked about that, to retaliate against the United States because we attacked their friend Syria. There's just a lot of dominoes that fall in a bad way, I see, if the U.S. gets involved militarily at this time.
And this is why you were leaning no, or were decided no.
I'm a no on the resolution. And they haven't made the case to me, Bill, that the United States was imminently threatened in any way. And
Right.
It just looks like a way to get Obama away from the red line and involve men and women who, are serving in our military, put them in harm's way. And we do have the best military. I support those guys. But I have a hard time sending another group of Americans, whether it's Navy or airmen, into somebody else's civil war where I don't see the U.S. has been attacked or there's any imminent threat of attack.
Absolutely. And note this too, Jeff, if I may. There's a change of the terms here with this Russian deal. Note, it's subtle, but it's important. The president said he was going to launch this attack because of what they had done, use this gas against their own people. Now, if they turn over their canisters, all is forgiven. So it's not a matter of what they have done. It's now just a matter of turning over the gas they already have. There's no retribution here. Notice the change of the terms. He's violating his own terms of outrage.
Yeah, he has. And they gave us a White House press statement yesterday. This is a September 6th joint statement on Syria. You can find it at the whitehouse.gov/issues foreign policy/Syria. And it says this. It says, we welcome additional countries expressing their support for this statement and our continued efforts to hold Assad regime accountable and enforce international norm against the use of chemical weapons. But it also says, part in here, this statement explicitly supports the efforts undertaken by the United States and other countries to reinforce the prohibition on the use of chemical weapons. Since the issuance of that statement, additional countries, and they've got them listed here, but it's not a statement on a military strike. It is a statement condemning the use of chemical weapons. Well, the world's condemned the use of chemical weapons for a long time.
Yeah, there's no news there, right?
No news, and so this statement is actually a lot different than what we have heard out of the administration up until last night. And this was handed out to us at the briefing that could have been open to the public because there was nothing said there that I hadn't seen on open source. But
yeah, here's a guy from CNN who wrote, it's a long-shot proposal started by accident, promoted by parties who have lied, and cautiously embraced by a U.S. administration whose policies are incoherent. I think that's about sums it up. Jeff Duncan, thanks very much. Thanks for your strong stands on all this.
Yes, sir, Bill. Thank you. God bless you.
We appreciate you standing up for the Benghazi guys. Thank you,
yes,
sir.
Sir.